Welcome to this first dialogue about designs for learning. That will be part of a series of discussions we're going to give from Stockholm University and the Department of Computer and System Sciences. My name is Staffan Selander and I'm a professor of education and working here since 2 years. And my colleague here.
My name is Robert Ramberg, and I'm a professor here at the department, and I've got a background in cognitive psychology.
And we are going to just sketch out a little what we mean by designs for learning. I started with that, as you know, back in 2006-07, and then we started a journal called Designs for Learning, which is an open access online journal, an e-journal. And my idea was that there's a change in society where each of us are given more responsibility to create and design our work and our possibilities for others. So one part of this is design for learning, and the other part of that is, when you are a learner, the design in learning. So from the beginning we, so to say, hijacked the design concept, and then we changed it to something else. And it was at that moment we started also to have common seminars, because at the time I was at another department. And we started to have joint seminars trying to find out what does it mean, design, learning, theoretically and methodologically, and also in terms of development.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would like to add, I mean, it's sort of been like a trend for the past 10, 15 years or so, the concept of design being picked up here and there. But I feel that when we started to discuss the concept of designs for learning, the research that we were carrying out here at the department within interaction design and trying to create environments where students were allowed to come to creative expressions in their learning, trying to provide them with tools to have them come to creative expressions, sort of fit very nicely with what you proposed at that time.
Yeah.
It has for certain sort of evolved since then.
That was a very interesting merge. And sometimes I was asked, why did I use a design concept? Because there's an old connotation of you design for in your head and then you carry it out. And my approach was more like interactive, dialogical, creative, transformative processes that we start.
Yeah.
And that fits also, I think, with your idea about how we can use this.
Definitely, and sort of coming back to the concept of design and then interaction design. Of course, there are different definitions of what interaction design is, but I want sort of to look upon it as designing for certain interactions, or trying to design for certain interactions, trying to design contexts and environments and tools that invite for certain interactions. You can't be certain those things will actually happen, but you can only, do what you can basically for it to happen.
And for me, that raises question also about other aspects, like what is knowledge? And to some degree, you can say there is no knowledge does not exist without some kind of representation. You need to show it, talk about it, write about it, make a film, make a photo, make a graphical representation. You have to represent it in some way.
Yeah, definitely.
And if we accept that, we must say that it matters how you represent knowledge.
It matters for sure, and it matters also what kind of tools you put into the hands of those that are to come to expression of their understandings. Definitely so, yeah.
So that gives an accent to, for example, in a educational context, what the teacher is doing is to design for in terms of tools and representations.
Yeah.
And then my next conceptualization is about the interactive part. You have to interpret as a student. You work with different tools. You transform your own thinking and ideas in cooperation with others, and you make a new representation of your understanding.
And from my perspective, what you're describing right now, I would describe as a also sort of containing representations and processes of re-representing something that has already been represented. And this particular representation also being perhaps a vehicle for communication. Someone else can see it and act upon it and let her or his understanding of this representation come to a new expression. It is sort of sketching within interaction design, and more particularly collaborative sketching within interaction design, making use of various resources like clay or pen and paper or whiteboards or whatever you put into the hands of the students or the designers in general.
And that also leads me to my third aspect, that is the role of multimodality, meaning if you see it from a social semiotic point of view, you create signs and you orchestrate signs in communicative acts, and all the multimodal resources that you use have different meaning potentials and different possibilities if you want to make an analysis, tell a story in different ways, and so on and so forth. But it also matters the kind of multimodal resources you use, and also how you can interpret and read multimodal representations. Or I would say that perspective gives you an insight in the meaning potential.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, if I recall correctly, I think it was there that it was some seminar we had, and I presented a few results from studies that we conducted within interaction design, and more particularly where we had professional interaction designers, in other words practitioners, sketching on a whiteboard, and students also sketching given certain materials. And one of the things we of course noticed was that those being more proficient in this, the practitioners, when they sketched, they knew from the outlet, from the start, that certain concepts within interaction design, such as interactivity or dynamics or temporality and other things, are extremely difficult to represent sort of in a physical or stable format in a way. I mean, there's no dynamics in a sketch on a whiteboard, but rather they started to act it out. So part of the sketch became the proficient interaction designers acting in front of the static representation. We could also see instead, and that is an example of multimodality, I would say, sort of using one representational means, the static representation, but you cannot draw interactivity, you cannot draw certain aspects, so you have to act it out. And we saw the same tendencies amongst the students. And I think it was in that, when I presented that at a seminar at some point, that we said, well, here, we've got something in common here. That was fun.
And it also, I think, it points up to understand learning is to understand a series of actings. It's a process.
Absolutely, and transformations of representations. So.
Still another aspect that, for me, raises from this conceptualization is what I call cultures of recognition. Because in every sphere of society, we assess and recognize something as something. But in a school context, we are used to assess according to traditional resources and traditional thinking, which it's not necessarily bad. But when we start to use new resources, new kind of knowledge representations, we also need to develop our assessment systems so we can recognize ways of presenting knowledge, not only from the old box, how it should be, but from the new kind of resources that we allow in the learning process.
Yeah, and that's a challenge for
That's
the
a
schools.
challenge.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we would have someone here, perhaps from industrial design or interaction design, pure, so to speak, they would most likely give another definition of the concept of design. But sort of assuming an approach saying that teachers, researchers, we all sort of design for or prepare things for something to happen, which is for certain something they do in school all the time. The teachers prepare for certain things to happen, and they give the kids, the students, certain things, and they want certain things to happen, and in most instances maybe those things do happen. But yeah, I would agree. And also perhaps something I would like to come back to in other discussions is something you're touching upon now, which I feel is extremely important, namely much of the research that is being conducted in schools today, and perhaps more in the past. Researchers visiting the schools, we're meant to be experts in providing and coming up with good ideas of how to use various tools, information technology tools in school. And we conduct our studies, and we develop our tools, and then we go back to the universities and we write our papers and our dissertations and everything. But not much of what we do really sort of stays in school, which is part of, I think, what you're discussing now. And perhaps there's a responsibility on our behalf to leave something behind, which is methodologies on how to approach, for instance, how to use information technology in school, so that they can keep on designing their own practice. Yeah.
This is but the first one in a series of conversations we're going to give from our department about our research in design and designs for learning. And where we will show different kind of research projects, developmental projects, game-oriented learning designs, and so on. So welcome again, and thank you.
Thank you.